Hey peeps, June here. So HK recently ranked number 26 in the World University ranking, but I sincerely think that we should not be chasing over any kind of ranking at all. Why is that so? Is because first, it creates unequal distribution in the society and in the system of academia. How is that so? So first, we need to understand how the rating or the ranking system works. So one of the key components is that research is very important. So it weighs about 20% to 30%. It depends on whether you're looking at the QS World Ranking or you're looking at the Times Higher Education Ranking. So they account for 20% and 30%. And how this creates unequal distribution of resources is that everyone will be looking at doing research that has high impact. For example, they'll be looking at doing research about cancer and all that because it attracts more citation. So citation equals kind of like impact factor, right? Because how do we come up with the figure of impact factor? It comes from citation, right? Citation per paper, per article. If there is more people citing this article, then we can say that this journal always have a lot of citation. That's why it is a high impact journal, because a lot of people cite it. It makes it a high impact journal. Now with that, it means that we are drawing our resources towards this important topic. Yes, it is important, but at the same time, when we allocate all our resources to just one thing or just one aspect of it, then we miss out everything else. So let me give you an example how this grounds in really. So let's say if we look into things about psychology and all that, what are topics that generate a lot of high impact? So it's always about psychopathology. It's always about how people get ill, and then it's all about those ill stuff, alright? So how bad people are and all that. So that is what attracts most of the attention and impact and citation. And on the other hand is that I personally know someone who is doing research about indigenous people in Malaysia, orang asli. So she was working on this aspect to understand how indigenous people, how they understand health and then mental health, how do they use those cultural elements to embrace this concept about mental health, and how do they maintain their mental health within their living environment and structures. So I personally think that orang asli is also an important part of the Malaysian society, but it's not discussed enough. And unfortunately, what happens is that the university told this person, we are so sorry, but your research is not really sustainable. It's not. I'm guessing by what it means not sustainable is that it's not generating enough citation. It's not generating enough impact, right? Again, it's all about chasing world university ranking and all those things. So what happens is that unfortunately, this researcher has to just close down anything to do with this orang asli research. I think it's quite sad because again, when we are chasing over all these high impact, high citation things, then we only benefit this group of people, this elite group of people, right? Because all our resources are channeling towards just this topic, whereas everyone else is regarded as not as important. So with that, let's look at how I think COVID taught us a very important lesson, because when we are overly skilled in just one thing and we miss out everything else, right? For example, Thailand is very focused on the tourism aspect. So when COVID hits, the Thai economy was not as sustainable because most part of their GDP or their income is relying on tourism. So when tourism has to be shut down, they cut down a lot of their income and they face a huge crisis in Thailand. That's why it is important to diversify our portfolio. The same thing is with research. If we only channel resources to look at what is high impact journal or high impact topics, we are creating a lot of trouble because it is unsustainable. Because it's like you're putting all your money into just one basket and hoping that this basket will sustain, will win for the long run. But look at it, if you are so skilled in just one thing and you miss out on everything else, in the long run, let's say 10 years, 20 years down, okay, you are so good at this, okay, this problem solved, what's next? You lose out on everything else. So if some pandemic or some kind of things hit and this topic is no longer as high impact, you lose out. You don't know how to compete with everyone else on other topics. And also, if we think from a social justice lens, when all these resources, because orang asli is a minority group, right? And if we don't channel enough resources to just protect them and just channel resources to really prioritize in understanding their health and also understanding how we as a society, as a Malaysian society, the whole system, how we can support them as part of Malaysian community, I think that is huge injustice being done here. Because we must not say that, oh, only this group of people deserve our attention. If we bring this topic a bit closer to ourselves is, let's say, imagine that this person has got Alzheimer. If this person is a stranger, then it doesn't affect us as much. But if we start to see that, okay, maybe this person with Alzheimer is someone that is related to us, it could be our grandparents or someone like that, then immediately we start to feel that, oh, this topic hits home, right? The same thing, if we don't have this concept that indigenous people, orang asli, is also an important part of the Malaysian community and a part of the community that is so often overlooked because they are not within the major race, right? If you look at what is happening in Malaysia, all resources, we are always only thinking about Malay, Chinese, Indian, and others. And that is the problem. When we group everyone else in the others, we don't see them. We don't have research that is targeted to help them to promote their health and well-being. Great injustice. Because they are minority groups, but we are not channeling our resources to really protect them and really enshrine their rights, their health, benefit, and all that. So we have so much to improve as a society. Okay, before we get derailed, point number 2. So, university become mad about ranking, and how does that grounds in everyday life? So, for your information, if you're not in this university system as a postgraduate student or as an academician, you might not be able to understand this. But what I can tell you is that university system is extremely toxic. Extremely toxic, right? Extremely. Okay, there is never enough paper, and we collect we are always on the run to write another paper and another paper and another paper. So what happens is that I personally find this not very ethical, but this is just what is happening right now around the world. So people are collecting a bunch of data. All right, so it's like give out a blanket of questionnaires. By right, we should not do it. By right, okay, on research ethics, we should not do it. Because we should be looking at specifically, oh, this and this and this. It makes sense to collect this way, this data, because there is this theory to support it. Otherwise, we're just looking at random associations. But this is what is happening around the world right now, is that people are collecting a bunch of data. So let's say I administer to you 20 questionnaires, and I collect data from 5,000 people. And I will make use of these 5,000 people's answer on these 20 questionnaires. Maybe I will publish like 50 papers out of it. I'll just cherry pick like this variables. I'll run the test. Oh, significant. Then we publish it. What do you think? Do you think it's something that's amazing? I personally, I think whoever they comes up with this approach, they are creative, very creative in answering this challenge of responding to this challenge of publishing paper. But at the same time, I really question, why are we doing this, and what are we doing? Because again, I feel that we are slowly derailing from doing what research work is about. When we start to be so mad about rankings, about publishing papers, the stress trickles down. It does. So how does it appears, or how does it manifest in the academic system is that it forces students and academicians to be on the run, to always publish papers. So when academicians can't take it, who do I mean by academicians? It means that the administrators level. So for example, the chancellor or the vice chancellor will say that, oh, we need to publish, for example, this year we'll only publish like 20 papers. This is not enough. We need to aim for 50 papers. And once we hit 55 papers, congratulations. Next, let's aim for 100 papers this year. Okay, that goes on. There's never a maximum cap, so it's always trying to squeeze you for even more, for even more, for even more publications. So what happens next is to survive in this crazy run is academicians start to what we call do salami slicing. So imagine it's like a sausage, right? So or ham. So a ham is like a block of meat, right? So we slice it thinner, which means that originally this let's say 4 papers was published, but if we look at them, they should actually be combined into 1 paper, because that is the true contribution of it. It's only it should be only be discussed in 1 paper coherently and to create meaningful result. But because of this huge pressure to publish like now, immediately, quickly, now, next, so academicians have to solemnly slice all these papers down into smaller parts so that they can churn out more papers. I think this is rubbish. This is totally rubbish. So when academicians like professors, like lecturers, professors, associate professors, when they can't handle that stress of needing to publish so many papers, because whether they can renew their contract, it depends on how well they publish papers. If they don't publish as well, they either they don't get promoted, or some even get laid off. So to survive there, it's a publish or perish culture. This is what we call it. So when academicians can't hold it, the stress trickles down to the students, like postgraduate students who are doing master's degree or PhD degree. And I personally, I feel it too. I can see how stressed my supervisor is, and my PhD supervisor is, and how he is really trying to push me to publish paper as well. Okay, so there is no mental health in academia. That's rubbish. Alright, mental health does not exist in academia. It's a crazily toxic place. No matter it is about students or is it about professors, everyone, mental health is like utter rubbish. And seriously, it's a very toxic and horrible place to be in. So when the university are mad about ranking, it creates a lot of problem, like salami slicing in research publication, and also a lot of crazy stress on professors and students to chase over things that is immediately you can publish, and not so much about really trying to be so good at one thing, you are really an expert in it. Not so much. It's more about whether you can publish. I find it strange, because after all, PhD by right, it's a love for knowledge. You love something so much that you dedicate your life to really understand something and to be really an expert in it. But if we change the goal into, oh, you must publish at least 3 papers before you graduate, I'm like, why should you be focusing on how many papers I'm publishing, and instead of focusing on how well I develop myself as a scholar, as someone who is an expert in really knowing something that really contributes for the betterment of the society. Okay, my third point why we shouldn't chase over ranking is that we are focusing on to help other nations to grow rather than solving local problems. Look at it. So, what are the problems that are high impact? It is usually things that, yes, it does affect many nations. For example, let's say HIV, it affects many nations. Many people get affected. Okay, so they are looking at it. But the problem with it is that when we are so focused on chasing over these high impact topics, we also often missed out on solving it in the local context. Because when we want to chase over high ranking or high impact journal article, you need to do things like what they are publishing or they want to see. Okay. So once again, if I today you do something about cancer research, wow, and try, so you go for those high ranking journals. But me, I'm doing a research about orang asli. So the cancer research, maybe it's something about I don't know, leg cancer, for example, leg cancer. I'm not so sure, don't quote me on that. I'm not a medicine specialist and all that, but I just want to illustrate this point, right? So let's see, today it's about leg cancer. Let's say leg cancer is very popular or very common in this in the United States, but it's not as common in Malaysia because we are always driving our cars, so there's not so much of leg cancer problem. Okay, but over here we have got an orang asli problem that sanitary kind of things, sanitation and all that, it's not in place. So we are really, so I'm doing this orang asli research, which is to really solve and try to improve the betterment of everyday life of orang asli. But in order to speak to this high impact journal kind of thing, I need to chase over these things that is not as relevant in Malaysia in order to publish in high ranking journal. Or if we are not able to do that, what do? We hire people, we bring in people who do that line of research, we bring them into Malaysia universities. So that is how you can game the system. I find it's quite a bullshit lah. Because I think that was what happened to some Singaporean university, is that they bring in people who do those high impact research. Don't quote me, I could be wrong, or please correct me, right? After all, I need to be criticized if I say something wrong. So please educate me if I'm wrong. Tell me what the reality is. So those problems may be important in other nations, but I think lots of time when we overly focus on chasing over rankings and all that, doing those high impact research, we miss out on solving local problems. And once again, when you are overly skilled on solving others' problem and you lose out on solving your own problem, that is a big mistake in long run. Okay. Okay. The last reason I have in my list is this becomes another exam. We Asians, we are so good, so good in acing any exam, right? So you just give us the list, you tell me these are the criteria that you are going to evaluate me in, tell you Asians can definitely score it. Okay, we are so good in doing exam. Okay, but the problem with this is that when we are so good at doing exam, think about it. What is your experience with exam? My experience with exam, it's always about memorizing something and just vomiting something. Is there any creativity in it? No, zero. Okay, so that's the problem with our system as well. So when we are overly focused on chasing over all this ranking system, it's basically just another word, alright? It's an exam. How well we score on this exam. So I think we Asians, we can definitely score it. But once again, this is nothing about creativity, and so we miss out on asking those important questions. So we are always answering other important questions of other nations, and we are not solving any problems in our own land. Okay, so no matter it is in Malaysia or it is in Hong Kong, let me speak about Hong Kong case. Okay, so let's say if I say that we don't want to chase over ranking, then how do we know if people are doing like real stuff or rubbish? Easy. The solution I think is pretty straightforward. Just look into what's happening in the community. So if something happens to Hong Kong U, will Hong Kong people defend for Hong Kong U? Because Hong Kong U has changed our life drastically. Whatever research they do, we benefit, we as citizens, we benefit from it. Will Hong Kong people say that? Will Hong Kong people defend Hong Kong U for it? If yes, great. You're working on something that is good, beneficial for the betterment of your society. Because why? Let's look back at what research is about. Research at its core, at its very beginning, it's about how we can use research to solve problems in our society. When we gain more understanding about how this world works, how human interaction works, how do we create a better society for us to live in? So if the Hong Kong people they appreciate this contribution, they will definitely stand up and defend for Hong Kong U. The same thing for Malaysia. Let me ask all Malaysians, if you're looking at my video, just ask yourself, will you defend for any Malaysian university because they have done so much, change your life drastically, that you will defend them for their contribution? Yes or no? For me, I feel like it's a no lah, because it's like, what are you doing? I have never seen any kind of impact that is relevant to my life, or maybe there is, just that they don't tell us about it. But so far, in my own field, mental health counseling and all that, so far, unfortunately, I don't see that direct relevance yet. So I think there is so much we can work on. Right, that's from me. If you have got any other comments that you'd like to share with us, please do share in the comment section. Thank you and see you next time. Bye.